Okay, good morning, everyone. So I'll give you time to scan your attendance. I'll give another 1 more minutes before I start my lecture. Okay, we're going to continue the last lecture with regard to the competitive advantage, and after this, if we have some times, we will go for chapter 2. So basically, the last thing that we discussed from Tuesday class with regard to the five forces model, I think we already elaborate that, and then we already see how important this kind of model in order to help this kind of technology managers or perhaps entrepreneurs to formulate the technology strategy. So normally when we try to assess how attractive the industry is, we can use this kind of model because eventually this is going to impact the way we operate our business in the industry. Okay. And then this is actually the example when we try to look into this kind of five forces model. So if we look here, for example, we want to see to what extent this kind of aspect, for example, like threat of new entry, buyer's power, threat of substitution, as well as supplier power, going to impact the competitive rivalry. Okay. So having said that, I have given several examples. For example, we already discussed about Astro just on Tuesday, and then we also actually see to what extent this kind of customer perspective, what that means how customers basically or buyers have this kind of influence towards the company's operation. So I hope that you already have this kind of clear understanding with regard to the five forces model. In particular, how this kind of model going to impact the decision of the managers to make this kind of industry analysis. Okay, the next aspect, this is actually example. If we look from Malaysia Airline, even though currently Malaysia Airline, that means in the airline industry, are facing a very, what we call it, significant challenge due to the COVID-19. Okay, so this is actually referring to the external forces as well. Okay, if you look here, this is actually the previous model without taking into consideration the impact of COVID-19. If you look here, so here is actually when we talk about Malaysian airline. So when we look in terms of competitive rivalry, definitely like if we take perspective in Malaysia, we can simply look that the main competitors should be like AirAsia and Malindo, which is the alternative given in the airline industry. Okay, and then when we look in terms of threat of new entrants. So this is actually the emergence of national airline as well as foreign airlines. Okay, and I believe that if you look from the operation of Malaysian airline, many of the what we call it, one of the ways that they are doing in order to minimize the impact of competition is through cooperation. Do you familiar with this kind of strategic alliance, everyone? Hello, guys. So can you actually give some perspective to what extent basically Malaysian Airlines try to cooperate with their competitors? How they doing that? Do you have any idea? Any one of you here basically frequent users of Malaysian Airlines? Anyone?
Uh, I I think in term of route, so basically as I know, because Malindo airline
Mm-hmm.
is a very is a low cost airline. So I think they are cooperating together. Example in the in the Malaysia only Malaysian airline, and then in Sabah Sarawak is only Malindo. So they are menguasai pasar dengan mengambil alih wilayah yang diorang nak ambil kerjasama.
Okay. Yeah, I'm reversed to give the comment. I want to get feedback from other as well. Okay, Faik, thank you very much for your opinion. Do you know how basically Malaysian Airlines try to minimize the impact of competitive rivalry when we try to look into not only local but also international road or perhaps the services provided to the other countries? Anyone? Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. I think what you said is totally true. So, in order for Malaysian Airlines to minimize the cost as well as to avoid any kind of fierce competition, so in this kind of airlines business, they have this kind of some kind of we call it alliance. Okay. So one of the alliances that being joining by Malaysian Airlines is called One World. Okay. So basically, they try to minimize the road to what we call it to Australia, for example, because they have collaboration with Qantas, which is the national airline for Australia, and then they also have the collaboration, if I'm not mistaken, with if I'm not mistaken, with Emirates. Emirates, if I'm not mistaken. There's two airlines. Emirates. Yes, Emirates. Okay. So this is the ways how they try to actually they need to collaborate with this kind of competitors. Okay. So that means if someone basically book Malaysian airline and the road basically not being serviced by Malaysian airline, they're going to directly to the competitors service. Okay. This is quite norm. I mean, because this depending on the alliance that that actually has been established. So that's the reason why if you try to remember like back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, after the incident of did you remember the incident MH17? Is it MH17? I'm not pretty sure. I think MH17, right? Whereby there was a crash happened by Malaysian Airline in whereby the road to Netherlands. Did you remember that one? It's actually happened in Ukraine, uh, and then it's being shot by terrorists in the Ukraine region, and then the airline basically crashed. Do you remember that kind of incident, everyone? Ingat tak? Yeah. So basically, after that kind of incident, I think less than 1 year, Malaysian Airlines ceased, that means stop its services to Netherlands. Okay. So if you want to travel to Netherlands, okay, currently you actually need to take another kind of 2014. Thank you very much, Atika. So basically, this is what happened. What happened. So to tell you about this kind of alliance, that means in the industry, sometimes they have this kind of what we call as competition. Even though it looks like competitors to them, but eventually they need to collaborate. Okay. Okay. So I think I just want to I want you to have this kind of understanding when you try to look in terms of this kind of Porter's five forces model. So you should actually know about this kind of things, how you're going to relate with the certain industry. So here we actually taking from perspective of airline industry, threat of new entrants, bargaining power of buyers. For example, you need to understand who are your customers, whether it's budget travelers, pleasure travelers or business travelers. Okay, because for those who actually budget traveler, definitely they do not want to pay more. Okay, so this is where they actually face a real what we call it competition with other low cost airline, like being said by Faik just now. Okay, the thing like this, Faik, they in Sarawak basically, particularly for the local road in Sabah and Sarawak, Malaysian Airline basically have a subsidiary called Maswing. Okay, any one of you here from Sabah and Sarawak, ada tak? Basically, if you travel, for example, from Kuching to Muka, for example, or perhaps you want to travel from what we call it from Miri to to Kinabalu. So normally you definitely will take Maswing, which is this is a subsidiary, which is another company under Malaysian Airline, and then they don't really use big flight, okay, or aeroplane. They simply use this kind of what they call it Fokker. If I'm not mistaken, they call it Fokker. That means a small flight that travel using the local road. Okay, and then threat of substitute of product or services. So having said that, if people don't travel by airline, definitely they have another alternative. For example, through bus, car, and train. And perhaps if you look here, it's quite interesting. People basically can using this kind of technology alternative via video conferencing. Sometimes it's true because nowadays people started to realize, okay, the post COVID-19 way of working totally make a realize that we basically can minimize the amount of traveling for us to attend any meeting. Okay, I just want to share you my experience. Previously, for example, if I actually need to attend a meeting at Putrajaya, particularly because all the ministries, for example, like KPT, Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Human Resource, Ministry of Science and Technology. Every ministry is basically located in Putrajaya. Sometimes they call for a meeting, and you know what? The meeting basically been organized, or it just actually happened within 2 hours. Okay, so that means if we go there, we just actually spend 2 hours for the meeting, and and we went back. It's totally time consuming because the traveling for us to go to Putrajaya from Johor, it might take about at least 3.5 hours. So that means it's going to take about 7 hours for traveling and 2 hours for meeting. So for me, it's such a waste lah, because most of the time is actually for traveling uh, time. Okay, and then the last one is actually bargaining power of suppliers. So here we actually talking in terms of fuel companies, catering supplies, as well as aircraft companies. Okay, so when we talk about this, for example, in the airline aircraft companies, so basically, whether they actually engage with Boeing ataupun what is another company, Boeing and anyone? There are two big companies that basically. Yes, correct. A-bus. Okay, A-bus. Okay. So this is actually how they try to negotiate or perhaps have some kind of negotiation with this company. Okay. And then catering supply, for example, like those actually receive this kind of supply for Malaysian Airlines, definitely they become rich. For example, like Brahim, which is the what we call it the food packaging company. So they are actually the main suppliers for Malaysian Airline, okay, a Malaysian company, and fuel company as well. Okay, normally Malaysian Airline will have a collaboration with Petronas normally. Okay, so this is another aspect after we already discussed regarding the five forces model. The next aspect that we also want to look at with regard to the competitive advantage is to what extent the company able to create this kind of value change. So this is referring to the description of the activities that are used to produce and deliver a product to the customers. I believe that when you learn about supply chain management, for example, or perhaps operation management, we also want to look in terms of this kind of value chain network, okay, or activities. So here, the companies need to define which activities that could be considered as the primary. For example, if you look here, we actually classify the primary activities as inbound logistic and then production, outbound logistic, marketing and sale and services. Okay. Meanwhile, for the support, so here we actually can see is in terms of procurement, technology development, human resource management, and firm infrastructure. Okay. Again, so this is actually the example, but sometimes it's totally depending on the core advantage of the companies, how basically they're going to classify which one is become the primary and which one is become the support. Okay, for example, like not all basically become the primary here. If look in terms of marketing and sales, sometimes it can also be outsourced. That means it can become the support. Okay. Similarly, if the company focuses on technology development, that means they're actually into this kind of R&D. So their main business, which is the primary value chain of the company, basically technology development or R&D. So again, it's totally depending on the nature of business, okay, of the company as well as perhaps the industry that they are currently operate. Okay, so this is the value chain where why it's very important. Okay, it's very important for the managers to examine the value chain because definitely it's going to help them to formulate the technology strategy. For example, it's help them to determine where most the value creation lies in an industry. Like I said just now, if you basically operate, for example, in the what we call it manufacturing industry, which is it might require you to develop some kind of technology. Having said that, you need to put more focus in terms of R&D technologies. But if you actually focusing on, for example, services industry, whereby more or less your main core business, basically how you're going to please the customers, interact with them, and make sure that you have a good rapport with the customers. So that means you need to focus in terms of marketing and sales. Okay. So again, you need to determine which of the activities that give more value creation to your business. And secondly, through the understanding of this kind of value chain is going to help you to determine whether it makes sense to focus on different stage of the value chain. Okay, if the locus of value creation in industry changes. Okay, so this is where I just want to give you the example. Sometimes the business need to be very dynamic. Again, like what happened like during the COVID-19. So many of the business trying to change the value chain because they cannot simply focus on the current business. So having said that, they're facing this kind of challenge, and then they need to focus the locus of value creation. Okay. So again, it depending on perhaps the location, perhaps in terms of the regulations, and then the human resource that they have. So this is where they need to focus on that. Okay, for example, like different stage. Normally, during the first stages, definitely they need to focus on the aspect of product development. And after they started to grow their business, I mean, the moment the company start to penetrate into the industry, so definitely they need to focus on the marketing and sales activities. So again, you need to see at what stage that the company operate and how are you going to focus on that particular value change activities. And the third one is going to offer insights into whether new or established firm will be more effective at innovation. So maybe later in chapter two, I'm not actually discuss chapter two yet, but again, you need to consider to what extent that you need to focus on the product innovation and process innovation. Okay, because at certain point of time, when the technical standard is still not established yet, okay, that means many of the companies might be focusing on or focusing more in terms of new innovation, which is product innovation, or perhaps what we call it as a radical innovation. That means everyone want to establish a new product, and until when there is a technical standard, that means some kind of dominant design has been emerged in the industry. So this is where people started to focus more in terms of what is basically available, and they will focus more in terms of process innovation. So this is where the radical innovation come to picture. As simple as when I try to look in terms of electric car, okay, for your information, the existence or perhaps the creation of electric car basically has been more uh, is actually more than 100 years ago. Okay, so just recently, because people started to consider much in terms of environmental protection, or perhaps in terms of green effect or green business. So that's the reason why the focus of electric car, or perhaps what we call it electronic EV, we call it electric vehicle, is become one of the most important aspect that currently being focused by many countries, particularly those who are very concerned in terms of environment. Okay, so that means even though during that point of time, electric car has been created. If you can simply Google, it's actually more than 100 years ago. Okay, but since it's actually not become the dominant design due to several factors, so and it's much more easier. People actually focus more in terms of petrol fuel punya car. Okay, so that's the reason why for 100 years we are actually using this kind of car, until we started to realize when we have a lot of cars on the road, so it's actually bring a great impact to the global warming problem. Okay, and in that aspect, the company basically could be able to suggest how companies can create competitive advantage at different stages of the value chain. Okay, this kind of understanding, sometimes company should know which Malaysia has produced my car. Yes, in this year they just produced my car. I think that's a great development, but again, the production of that kind of car should be in line with the infrastructure that we're going to do. Because as we discussed in Malaysia, basically we started to have this kind of green tech. We have this kind of initiative to bring several or the first 100 Tesla car to Malaysia, but due to some factors, for example, it's very costly. The price of Tesla, for example, can reach about 800,000 ringgit, okay, due to the what we call it tax, okay, and then we don't have enough infrastructure, particularly the charging point. But yes, I just read the news. Thank you, Iza, with regard to the Mica, which is actually under prototype. Most probably, the process might be longer because we need to test and we need to actually understand how the customer will react. Okay, like has what happened before when we actually try to invite Tesla. That means we have the program under the Green Tech company, if I'm not mistaken, Green Tech Corporation. Okay, so basically, they actually put more focus towards the corporate customers, particularly among GLC as well as companies. Okay, that means the ministry that going to buy that car. But again, the maintenance is quite higher. I'm not pretty sure whether you actually have the chance because previously, under the initiative taken by Green Tech Corporation as well, if not mistaken. Saya tak ingat whether you are here or not, but back in 2017 kot. Back in 2017, UTM basically have an electric bus. You pernah ada tak? Were you actually already at UTM during that point of time, guys? You pernah tahu tak UTM, there is one bus basically operated which is using electric punya bus, totally actually electric without using any kind of what we call it petrol.
Pernah.
Masa tu your first year, is it during your first year?
Yeah, 2017. Or
Have you ever had the opportunity to use that service before? Siapa pernah naik bus elektrik
saya pernah naik, Doktor.
di UTM, Faik?
Iya, di UTM.
Yes, yes.
One
In
time.
which year? I think 2017, right, Faik?
Yes, it is.
Yes. So the thing is, this is actually a pilot study that we actually we want to test and then masuklah surat khabar whatsoever, which is UTM have this kind of electric bus, but the main problem that we don't have the expertise to maintain and the cost to maintain is very high. Okay. And you know what? Within 1 year, less than 1 year, we actually decided not to continue that kind of service. It's become Project Gajah Putih. Okay. Similarly, in 2000, I think I have discussion before dengan Group Faiz. Similarly, there is one company that wanted to introduce e-scooter. You know e-scooter? Dia bukan e-bike, e-scooter. Pernah dengar tak dia macam apa? You know e-scooter?
Iya, yang scan barcode tu ya, sir.
Correct. It's called, I couldn't remember the name, Teleport. Okay, ada satu company from Singapore. They actually want to make collaboration with UTM. I just share with you. Maybe you can Google Teleport. That's the name of the company. Okay. And then they actually put at several locations such as at Chancellery and then at certain locations saya tak ingat.
People.
Yes, they tried to make the trial for about 6 months. But what happened? Guys, what happened to this kind of service? Do you know? Because they really want to actually say that we moving towards, like UTM kan, dia buat car free day lah, and then they introduce e-bike and then pun tak berjaya because of maintenance. The thing like this, we simply can receive this kind of innovation, a product technology, okay, but the thing is we don't have the capacity to maintain. Okay, sama juga macam yang saya cakap, okay, e-scooter, which is called teleport. Pernah dengar, have you ever used that kind of service before, teleport? Let me try to find. Kita ada, which is back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, teleport. I try to teleport kot ke, lupa lah, scooter. Yep. Okay, wait a moment. I'm going to share with you. So this is the service that they want to bring into UTM called Teleport. Macam gini bentuk dia. Nampak? Can you see? E-scooter. I think this is the company. Is it? Dah tak wujud ke? Previously this one lah ni lah company Teleport. This is actually the one that available at UTM before. Ada pun video 2019. Okay, I'm not pretty sure whether you can listen to this. Dia boleh dengar ke? Can you listen to the voice, guys?
Cannot.
Boleh dengar ke?
No, doctor.
Okay, let me try to change the setting. Hopefully you can is it this one? Kan. Because sometimes it's about setting here, I'm not pretty sure which one. Hmm. Tak apa, tak apa, nanti you boleh simply Google. If you look here, wait a moment. Just want to share again. So this is teleport. Okay, surprisingly, they launched at UTM and then keluar surat khabar. Tak apalah, you tengok tanpa ada lagu lah. Can you watch the video, right? Without the song.
Yes, can.
You nampak? Ni UTM ni 2019. Free 10 minutes. Saya nak tunjuk dekat you lah. So this is something that nampak during that time. Meriah ambil kamera semua kan, because we actually say that we want to what we call it create green campus. Saya lanjutkan lah. Ada perasmian lagi. Okay. Tepuk semua. Okay. Okay. Saya nak share. Okay, so from your own perspective, why this kind of things basically couldn't be adopted well at UTM? Anyone? Anyone? Guys, just now I actually show you in early 2019, okay, UTM basically want to bring this kind of e-scooter which is called Teleport, okay, the company from Singapore. Okay, even they make this kind of launching, but unfortunately, many of you basically didn't have the what we call it opportunity to ride the e-scooter, and let alone you currently you can use it. Okay, so from your own perspective, why do you think that this kind of initiative basically fail? Even previously, like we discussed, the initiative to operate electric bus sama juga masuk surat khabar semua, lepas tu tak ada apa-apa. So why do you think do you think that this kind of things fail? For me, it's fail lah because dah tak ada dah.
From my perspective, I actually
Yes,
see that thing in UTM, and
You
then
see what?
I see the e-scooter dekat UTM punya library sana,
Okay.
and I actually, because when I go back to my hostel, there is an uphill. So if I take the e-scooter macam berat sangat, susah sangat nak uphill, lagi saya nak angkat yang ni e-scooter lagi. First is there's so many uphill and downhill in UTM. Second is I see the price that's almost similar. I can just order a Grab to fetch me back to my hostel.
Okay.
Mm.
Very good observation, Hazel. Okay, I think that's one of the ways because one of the things that we discussed is in terms of pricing. It's not really actually attractive enough for the student. Like you said, rather than you actually rent it, it's good for you to just simply take Grab. That's one example. And secondly, like you said, at UTM, even when they started to actually introduce this with this kind of, assignment, and I still have this kind of reservation because for me, like we said by Hazel, UTM is not really conducive to have this kind of facilities due to the hilly kind of geographical condition that we have. Okay, so the elevation is quite high at UTM. For example, even if you want to commute, if you want to take bicycle, from the center, like we call it center, to, for example, if you're living at College Perdana, any one of you here used to live at College Perdana? Anyone?
We live in College Perdana.
Yeah, especially if you live in College Perdana. So I believe that it's kind of challenges. Betul tak? Because it's quite hilly kind of place lah, situation. Okay. So I think I just continue. So that's actually something that we need to ponder upon, why this kind of thing fail. So as you can see, UTM has made a lot of attempts or initiative to bring this kind of technology innovation, but again, if people we need to see the level of adoption and to what extent it's actually suitable with your targeted users lah. Okay, so just continue here. Okay, I think it's almost done for this kind of things, and then the next part that we're going to discuss is with regard to this one. Okay, so the regime of creative destruction and creative accumulation. So some of industry basically operate through dynamic of creative destruction. So that means entrepreneurs enter with new firm, challenge established firm on the basis of new ideas, disrupt the old ways of production, organization and distribution and replace the old firms. So apa contohnya kalau dekat sini? When we try to look from the perspective or dynamic of creative destruction, anyone can give example? Can I call name? Saya lupa nak panggil nama. Okay, so can I actually call Wan Naziha? Wan Naziha, are you there?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, would you actually give some comments?
Maybe see the surrounding.
Sorry, can you speak louder? I have some noise here. Sorry.
Hello.
Yes.
Maybe see the surrounding before.
Say the surrounding. No. This is I'm not talking anymore about value creation. Right now, we are talking in terms of two aspects: creative destruction and creative accumulation from the industry perspective. So right now, we actually focusing on dynamic of creative destruction. If you look here, the entrepreneurs or perhaps the managers come up with this kind of new firm, challenge established firm on the basis of new ideas, disrupt the old ways of production, so on and so forth. So could you actually give some example based on the dynamics of creative destruction? Do you understand my question?
Saya kurang faham, doktor.
Kurang faham? Anyone?
Sorry, doktor.
No worries. Anyone? Faham tak maksud dia? Can I call? I'm not familiar with this name, but saya akan panggil ada satu nama yang saya nak panggil. Wait a moment.
Example of company, doctor.
Yes, boleh. Jopi. Baik, siapa nanti dulu? Jopi, are you there? Boleh tak buka kamera bila jawab soalan? Jopi,
Yes, doctor, I'm here.
will you please open your camera?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So, can you elaborate more about the company or the question?
I'm talking in terms of creative destruction. Okay, which is, if you look here, is a very simple kind of analogy of terms, which is entrepreneurs enter with new firm. That means they just enter the industry and then they challenge the established firms. Okay, and eventually they replace the old firms. That means they become dominant after they enter into the industry. So would you please give some kind of example regarding this?
Maybe Netflix, doctor.
Can
Wait a moment. I need to. There is a sound music. I want to.
Okay, please.
Sorry. Maybe Netflix, doctor.
Netflix, okay. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, Netflix. I think it replaces uh, some old companies in the TV industry because many people thought actually at the first beginning of the Netflix company that they will make it, but it turns out that Netflix is actually bigger than I mean uh, have a bigger advantage for the customer because it has so many uh, like TV series and movies, and people can actually choose it for themselves, so they don't have to wait like the conventional TV. I think.
Okay, thank you very much. But in order to show a more what we call it example, how basically Netflix is what we call it challenge the previous business, would you actually highlight what kind of the existing business or established business that being challenged by Netflix?
Yeah, I think like our discussion earlier, maybe Astro is one of the TV companies that are challenged by Netflix
Okay, other than Astro?
and cable TV like Indovision also in Indonesia. I don't know about companies from other than Indonesia.
Okay,
Yeah, like Indovision, like many other conventional TV.
okay, thank you very much. How about this? Anyone basically uh, could be able to share more? Netflix example is quite interesting, but I think I want to get a more obvious kind of example. So how because Netflix yeah, we're going to discuss after this. Okay, thank you very much, Jopi. Anyone please,
I think I can try, Doctor.
please. Okay,
Okay, so maybe one example, I don't know in Malaysia, I think but in Indonesia we have that we call as a Gojek. Because
okay, I
before
know.
this,
Okay,
um, so before this, usually before the Gojek established, they are using a bike in the conventional way, and then they have using Bluebird as well, and they have to calling, and then they because and that's in the old time before there's invention called smartphone. But in that time when Gojek is already established in 2011, they are starting to making application and coupling together with all the stuff in bike ride. So
mm-hmm.
until the company like Bluebird and then the conventional bike service have starting to going down because all the service will be easier because they're using Gojek instead of the conventional
Okay.
services like transportation. So I think that's one of the example of the instruction.
Thank you very much, Faik. Okay, just now, if you go to your WhatsApp, I share with you example of the rise and fall of Blockbuster. Please have a read. So this is where, for example, Blockbuster, previously known as the video rental business, is actually quite booming in the mid 1980s. Okay, if you look there, and then due to the emergence of what we call it, this kind of online streaming services. Okay, so totally it cannot survive. So that means what actually being done, what basically if you look here, creative destruction is not about challenging the existing business but also challenging the way the new ideas. So for example, from the rental video rental business is actually being challenged by a new service called online video services. So this is example if you look there, okay, Blockbuster. Okay, and then the next part is actually we also need to look in terms of dynamics of creative accumulation. So this is where entrepreneurs enter, challenge established firm on the basis of their new ideas. However, okay, established firm defend their old ways of production, organization, and distribution, and the new firms tend to fail. Okay, so just now we actually talking in terms of how the new business they coming out with this kind of new ideas totally challenge the established business. But when we talk about creative accumulation, So the established business basically retaliate. That means they try to make some kind of action in order to make sure that they actually in the good position. Okay. So can anyone give any example of this? Anyone? So that means they go into the business and then whatever that being introduced new in the market is being challenged again by the normal business. Okay, fight again. Okay, fight. Thank you very much. I just want to listen to others. So anyone could cryptocurrency. Okay, Arif Kurniawan, would you please actually share and explain? It's quite interesting when you're talking in terms of cryptocurrency. Will you please open your camera and share with your friends your views?
Okay, doctor. I will try, doctor.
No worries. There's
Yes.
no right or wrong. Just give a try.
So about cryptocurrency, I think they can be change the system of the money itself, but it's quite challenging for cryptocurrency because it's different with money that we cannot what we cannot take cryptocurrency by physically. Is the challenging for cryptocurrency, and yeah, I think it's one of the example for her creative disruption and accumulation.
Thank you very much, Arif. It's quite interesting when we discuss about cryptocurrency. Like you said, basically, when they actually want to challenge the new way of monetary system, definitely, sometimes it brings some kind of impact. And one of the challenge, or one of the things that being retaliated not only by the financial services, but this is where each country basically not really recognize this kind of what we call it system. Okay, so that's the reason why even though some people actually making a lot of money through cryptocurrency, but many people basically fail. That means they don't actually making any profit. They actually face some kind of loss, and eventually we actually don't use it. But when we talk about cryptocurrency, it's quite interesting because this is also related with blockchain. Okay, because nowadays, due to this kind of internet connection, so our what we call it life is become more integrated. Okay, and sometimes it's beyond the jurisdiction of a country. Okay, so that's actually where sometimes we actually face this kind of challenge, particularly uh, among the government agency lah. So that's the reason why the most important part is actually we need to regulate. For example, when we try to look from the perspective of Grab, okay, or Uber, or perhaps Gojek, for example, definitely the moment they actually go into this kind of industry, okay, so many of taxi drivers basically retaliated, and then they actually demand, okay, the government to take action. Even some of them actually feel so emotional. They ask the government to what we call it to stop the operation of Grab. But the thing is, Grab is, I mean, this kind of ride sharing services is unstoppable. It's actually happening around the world. Okay, so Malaysia couldn't simply take it down. Okay, so they need to actually the thing like this. It's kind of like I think it's common this kind of code. If you cannot beat them, join them. Okay, so this is where we need to regulate this kind of business. So rather than we actually keep on complaining, so that's the reason why I believe that if you ask a group of taxi drivers, they started to engage. So that's actually what happened. So Grab taxi operators started to collaborate with Grab. Am I right? Sometimes when you order Grab here, the one that came to fetch you basically taxi. Betul tak? Okay. If, yes, eventually, even though initially, you actually, I mean, the taxi driver complain, but they cannot actually stop this kind of new things. It's something that happening, okay? And and secondly, the government also need to govern that kind of things. Okay, for example, government actually requested all the cars that used for Grab need to be checked by Puspacom. That means need to be checked by the authority in order to make sure that the car in a good condition. That the first one. Secondly, the government actually advise or perhaps make it compulsory for all the Grab drivers to have this kind of license, PSD license. Okay, previously no, and then the third one, if I'm not mistaken, the government also urged the customers basically to put some kind of insurance, because previously when we actually take the Grab, we are not protected, guys. Okay, because they are using this kind of individual insurance for the Grab drivers. But since the drivers, I think beginning 2000, bila Faiz we buat Grab kan? I think 2019 kot, 2019 in mid 2019. So the government started to regulate this kind of things. Okay, so I believe you already get a better understanding with regard to these two. So the next aspect that we're going to discuss, okay, is with regard to the value chain in mobile phone. Okay, so more or less sama juga, saya tak nak ceritakan yang ini. So I just want to focus on another aspect when we talk about industry analysis with regard to the competitive advantage is capital intensity. Okay, established firm are better than new firm at innovation in capital intensive industries simply because new firm need to finance innovation through external capital market. So normally, for us to define about an industry, we want to see whether it's labor intensive. Okay, that means the production relies on using labor resources, or perhaps it's capital intensive. The production relies on using capital resources. Okay, certain industry, for example, like high tech industry, like steel, shipyard. Okay, and then nanotechnology. So all of that industry basically need to or require a lot of initial capital. So this is where we simply call it capital intensive. But sometimes, for example, in the agriculture, as can be seen here, it's more in terms of production, okay, which is they're actually focusing on labor resources. So that's the reason why, like in Malaysia, since we still not focusing much yet, okay, in terms of what we call it uh, automation. So we still actually relies on labor. Meanwhile, for now, okay, even an advanced country like Japan, okay, Japan is one of the most advanced country that focusing on automation. That means a lot of the processes basically could be simply done through robots, okay, because it's actually automated. But again, in Japan, they actually face some kind of crisis, even though many of the process has been replaced by machine, but Japan basically having an aging people crisis. Many of the people basically are aging, one part due to the low birth rate in Japan. That's actually the example. Even they expected, this is based on the study conducted by the World Bank, Japan basically going to face this kind of labor shortage by in 2030 up to 1.5 million. That's actually happening in Japan. I think in Malaysia, the thing like this. Do you think that in Malaysia we're actually facing labor shortages, guys? Can you give feedback from your own observation? Do you think that Malaysia basically face labor shortages? Hello, faham tak soalan saya ni? Understand my question?
Kekurangan tenaga kerja, doktor, maksud doktor.
Kekurangan tenaga kerja. So from your own understanding, because I'm talking in terms of labor intensive and capital intensive, but my question, do you think that Malaysia currently facing labor shortages?
Ya, doktor, I think so.
Explain lah, Faiz.
Yeah, we shortage of tenaga mahir, doktor.
tenaga kerja, not okay.
Oh,
But yeah, you can classify into skilled workers, semi-skilled workers, and low-skilled workers. Maybe you can discuss like that. Okay, can we discuss with regard to this? Do you think that Malaysia basically face labor shortage? In this class discussion, I stop the sharing. I just want everybody to participate with this kind of big question. Semua boleh buka kamera tak? We take a break. Bukan take a break. We want to have class activities. Everyone open the camera. I want to pinpoint siapa yang kena jawab. Open your camera right now. Yuman dah open camera. Thank you very much, Yuman, Chris. Okay, this is kenapa saya suruh open camera sekejap, because this is serious question for you to think about it. Iqbal, awak dah mandi belum ni? Rambut ya Allah panjang. Akmal, lama tak dengar suara Akmal. Ada rupanya.
Ada tu.
Okay, open your camera. Okay, right now, I actually talking in terms of labor shortages. Okay, what actually being asked or perhaps being discussed with Faiz just now, most probably you can give your answer based on this kind of category. When we talk about labor, definitely we can classify into skilled workers, semi-skilled workers, as well as low-skilled workers. So back to my main question. Okay, do you think that Malaysia currently facing labor shortage problem? Semua senyap.
I think no.
Jawablah, saya tak marah. Awak selama ni awak jawab salah, saya tak pernah marah. Right, Riwe? I never actually blame you. No, I never scold you. I just want you to be more participative. So please give your intellectual answer.
I think no, doctor.
Why? Okay, jangan no yes,
Okay.
saya boleh jawab.
Okay. In my opinion, most Asian countries have an excess of workforce because geographically, Southeast Asia has a higher youth level than Europe.
Okay, sorry, can you repeat? I try to digest your answer.
Because most of Southeast Asian has a higher young age, youth age. Depend on Europe, because Europe or Japan, they a lot of aging. They are.
Okay, thank you very much, Arif. I try to think about it. Okay, I want to ask Malaysian first lah. Thank you. This is from the perspective of Indonesian here. Thank you very much. Okay, I want to get a perspective from Sabah Masani, which is from Bangladesh. Do you think that Malaysia basically facing labor shortage?
Doctor, I don't know, but I can just say one thing. Maybe because I don't think Malaysians are that much interested in the low scale labor, because that's why there are a lot of foreign workers coming as the laborers, like low skill laborers.
Okay.
I think that there is some shortage in the low scale labor. That's why other country people are coming to Malaysia, because the Malaysians are not interested to work in the low skill sector, I think.
It's very interesting fact, Sabah. We're going to deliberate that after this. Thank you very much. Very, very good answer. Okay, from Malaysian, any representative from Malaysia? Okay, we just heard someone from Bangladesh and views from Indonesian students, and right now want to get the view from our local Malaysian. Do you think that Malaysia face labor shortage? If yes, why? If no, why? Ni yang kat dapur ni, Syikil Diana ni. Syikil mana Syikil? Kat dapur je. Syikil di KK lagi ya? Hilang terus. Kenapa dia terus hilang? Mana Syikil? Syikil awak hilang dah. Kenapa awak tutup kamera? Mana Syikil?
Adik saya masih di KK.
Syikil. Your answer.
In my opinion, I don't think that Malaysia is facing shortage labor because they are very skilled and unskilled labor, but then maybe because of our maybe because of apa our our maybe because of their expected salary is high, and then but then the company in Malaysia is uh they put the expected salary is too low. That's why uh the, we are facing the
Problem. Okay. Thank you very much, Shikin. Okay. I just want to get another opinion. I'm going to read human views after this. Okay, from the boys, from Malaysian boy. Akmal, you want to try? Dah senyum-senyum tu, cepat Akmal.
Is the Malaysian face labor shortage tu.
Yeah, that's my question just now for our discussion.
In my opinion, I think so because overall we don't have our population in Malaysia is not so many to cover the industries, but I think the government just masuk banyak sangat lah pekerja asing. That's my opinion. Because overall our population is around 4 million, I think 40 million, 4 million.
Hey, Ahmad ni.
Sorry.
Kita buang negara dia. 4 million sikit. We actually currently about 33 million right now.
Yeah, 33 million, yes.
Population in Malaysia, okay?
But still, I think that it is enough to cover all the industries in Malaysia.
Okay. So thank you very much, Akmal. So right now, based on latest statistic, many of the foreign workers basically coming from definitely sekarang ni yang paling ramai sebenarnya from Bangladesh. Okay, we have about like 60,000 Bangladeshi in Malaysia. Particularly, they're working in the manufacturing side. Okay, and then we have quite a number from Pakistan, as well as quite a number from Indonesia as well. Okay, but due to the COVID-19, definitely the number is totally decreased because of station of movement. Okay, so I think when we try to discuss this is happening not only in developing countries like Malaysia, but also in other countries as well, like in developed countries. Okay, the labor migration. What happened in Malaysia, for example, like what being said by Sabah just now is quite interesting. Many of Malaysians, they are not quite interested with the low skill laborers, which is human also said the same thing. In agriculture, for example, we do not want to take this kind of job among the local people. Even we do not want to become, security guard, cleaner, all this kind of low skill laborers. Okay, so due to that kind of thing, that's the reason why we need to import. Okay, that means we need to rely more from the foreign workers. But it's quite interesting because Lee Yuman here said that in semi-skill mostly no shortages. I think, yeah, that's true. But when we talk about the professional, the thing like this, we actually having the problem. That's the reason why previously we actually established the Talent Corporation of Malaysia, whereby we actually try to attract more Malaysian go back again to Malaysia. What we are facing right now, what we call it as a brain drain. Have you ever brain drain? Pernah dengar tak perkataan ni? Brain drain. Otak longkang, which is this is not otak longkang, but this is actually show that many of our professionals they go to another countries. Okay, this has happened. Particularly many Malaysian they migrate to Singapore, they migrate to Australia, they migrate to the UK. So that's the reason why all the cream of the cream in Malaysia we are losing. As simple as when we actually talking from the perspective of Grab. The founder of Grab basically Malaysian. He's Malaysian. Okay, and then when he did the business and he think that for him to accelerate the business, he need to relocate the business to Singapore. You got it? So we are losing this kind of unicorn. Many people believe that they can growing well in Singapore. Okay, so that's actually the example. you can actually off your camera right now. Biar saya bebel lagi sikit because I need to end the class very soon. I have a meeting at 11:30 today. Okay, tapi tak apa, at least you get this kind of ideas. For example, another kind of thing that we are facing right now, when we talk about low skill, semi skill, as well as normally we categorize into that kind of aspect. Like in Singapore, sama juga. In Singapore, the local people do not want to work at the low skill workers. You faham tak? Okay, what happened? All these Malaysian or Indonesian, they will go to Singapore. Okay, because they offer more attractive salary. Okay, one part. Okay, not more attractive salary. Salary quite similar. They're actually offering not salary. I think in terms of they have a higher currency. For example, you work at McDonald's in Malaysia, you can earn about 1,000 to 2,000 ringgit. Okay, my neighbors working at McDonald's as well as KFC, Burger King in Singapore, they earn about 2,000 Sing dollar. You got it? Okay, so that's actually why they can actually live a better life, and then they live in Malaysia. You got it? So that means with that kind of 6,000 ringgit, they earn more. I remember one of my students, saya lupa nama dia, which is I try to recall her name because she's my Facebook friend. Management of Technology student lah, which is your super duper senior, because she's graduated in 2014. Management of Technology. Okay, but dia saya rapat juga dengan dia because kawan Facebook tu rapat sikit lah. So basically, she graduated and then she basically immediately she worked in Singapore. Okay, because of the context, sometimes because her sister ke brother kerja kat sana and then pun dia kerja kat sana, and then fortunately she managed to get a job as the, if I'm not mistaken, procurement. There are two students lah, yang satu tu memang I'm quite close with her, a Chinese girl. So basically dia cerita kat saya lah because I went to Singapore, I met her. Okay, because I conduct a study before those Malaysian working in Singapore, so I met her. So she told me that her starting salary is about 2,700 Sing dollar. I believe sekarang dah 3,000 lah. So kalau kira dia punya salary tu during that time is actually more or less sama dengan saya, which is sama, you got it. Okay, I have a PhD and then she just actually fresh graduate, she got a job, and then her pass is actually like Singapore, they have three pass. Work permit, which is for low level. That means if you want to work as cleaner, working at McDonald's, you can simply work permit. And then they have X pass. Okay, X pass is actually for semi-skilled workers. So that means you just recently graduate, they're going to offer you with S pass. But if you actually have the experience and very skillful, they're going to offer you EP. Because EP, employment pass, the minimum salary that need to be offered by the employers basically 3,600 ringgit. So can you imagine? Kalau you actually become the professional in Singapore, and then you live in Malaysia, you memang kaya raya gila. Okay, so that's actually I want to share with you. But I believe that many of Malaysian who are in Singapore, if I ask them, because I conduct the study, they want to actually gain the experience for 10 or 15 years, and after that they will go back to Malaysia. This is normally happen, kan? Because during your young time, this is where you actually push your energy, push your time to work and to gain the experience. Okay. One of the example, do you know Dr. Helen Tan Soon Hong? Kenal tak dia? She actually, you boleh tanya dia punya experience. She actually has been working in Singapore for 11 years. She worked there 11 years and then she earned a lot of money. She become the PR, for example. She been offered, I think, to become the PR, permanent resident. And then after 11 years, she decided to go back and berbakti. That means berbakti kepada Malaysia. That means she become the lecturers. But if you ask her about the what we call the stress, the stress level there is quite stressful because in Singapore it's quite competitive work environment. Okay. Okay, so that's actually my sharing session for today. I'm so sorry I need to off right now because I have a meeting not at online. I need to go to Polish KTDI, meeting dengan pengetua KTDI. Okay, so we're going to actually discuss chapter 2 and chapter 3. The most important aspect that I want you to actually focus more, pastikan you all dah hantar belum senarai nama company. we're going to finalize the company by next week. Tak payahlah sedih sangat Iqbal. Okay, awak happy kan sebenarnya kelas nak habis. Okay, we're going to actually, I'm going to actually have a look, and then by next week, when I approve, you start engage with this company, boleh? So that means by next week is actually week 4, you start to make engagement with the company, and then you start to actually, we start actually discuss about the topic. Okay, the topic. If possible, the thing like this. In this class, I expected we have about how many groups? 6 groups. Okay, kita ada lebih kurang 6 group. Okay, 6 group. Kalau boleh 6 group ni semua tajuk berbeza. For example, it's actually coming from different topic. Kalau orang tu dah ambil tajuk marketing, kumpulan lain tak boleh ambil tajuk marketing. Okay, if one of the group has chosen marketing topic, so other group cannot choose marketing topic. You need to choose other topic. For example, R&D management, HR, operation management, customer relationship management, something like that. Okay, so I want to have a diversified. At least we can learn from one another. Okay, I think that's all for today. So for those who have scanned the attendance, you may leave the session right now. For those who are not scanned the attendance yet, let me share again. Where is it? Thank you very much. Have a nice day, everyone. I'm so sorry because I have a meeting pukul 11.30. Saya kena commute to KTDI. Saya pun tak tahu kat mana KTDI ni. Okay. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Dr.
No worries.
Thank you, Dr.
By the way, Chris dah keluar kan? Chris, are you there? When the Easter, are you Christian or Muslim?
Thank you, Dr.
Oh, you're Buddhist. Okay, sorry, saya tanya salah. I think because your name sounds like, I'm so sorry. Okay, no worries. Okay.
Doctor, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I want to ask regarding the assignment. Currently, my group already submit the 3 initiative companies, but
Good.
This morning we got another one. Can we change the company?
Yes.
So saya akan submit ulang lagi, boleh dokter?
Ya, bisa.
Oke.
Okay.
Oke dokter.
Thank you. Okay.